Get ready, get ready, get ready. Ladies and gentlemen, DJ Dan, Soulful House Nation. I'm coming to you live from the 8th floor. You are now watching Soulful House Nation. And our special guest today is Hippie Torrales. Hippie, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Dan. How you doing?
Good, good, good. So good to see you. And of course, you know, I have to tell my story about how you unknowingly caused me financial hardship, but but anyway, first of all, it's so good to see you, and I'm glad you, agreed to do this. For those of you who don't know, Hippie really goes back to, I'm going to even say before the beginning. I'm going to say,
the early days. Let's put it that way. The early days.
So what I want to do, I just want to take a few minutes, folks, and just have a great conversation with Hippie Torrales. And again, what's really, really powerful is that here's a man who's been in there from the door and is still relevant today. And, you know, over the years, we've seen DJs, producers, et cetera, come and go, but this man is still standing. So with that said, let's just get started with the easy stuff. Just tell us a little bit about you.
I was born in Puerto Rico. I grew up in New York City, first 5 years of my life. Mm-hmm. Then we moved to Jersey. Mm-hmm. From first grade to my first year high school, I lived in Jersey City. Mm-hmm. And then from there we moved to Newark. Mm-hmm. And then I lived for Newark for over 35 years. Mm-hmm. That's a little bit about me. Yeah.
Okay. Now, how did you start with music?
My parents, when we moved to Jersey City, when I was like 7, mm-hmm. I guess back then that was part of the growing up process. Like the parents, for some reason, wanted the kids to have something to do or learn something. Mm-hmm. You know, so you're either into baseball or into, doing football. Like they start them early in this. So my mm-hmm. parents started me with, okay, we're going to start you with music. So you're going to take piano lessons. So that's how I started. I started when I was 7 years old. I started taking piano lessons and stuff. Mm-hmm. I took piano for about 2 years. I took piano lessons. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you understand music from, I'm going to say, a musical standpoint, which is pretty powerful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was very lucky in that way. Yeah.
Now, how about some of your early music influences and some of your favorite artists from back in the day and the classics and even today?
Well, when I was looking at it, I realized my earliest influence were Marvin Gaye, James Brown.
Okay.
The Jackson 5 when they first came out. As a kid, that was that was our band, of course. And then, of course, we had a lot, we had a lot of the ballads were, amazing. Mm-hmm. Shy Lights, Stylistics, Blue Magic, all that kind of stuff. Those were the artists that influenced me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now, how did you get into house music?
Well, what happened was I was working down the shore at that point when house was beginning to start. I was working down the shore. So I would come up every weekend back to Newark because I was living down the shore working down there. But I would come every weekend, check things out, go visit Tony at Zanzibar and stuff like that. So one weekend I came up and he was playing a house record. And I can't remember what it was. I don't know if it was JM Silk or something like that. But I was like, what is this song? And Naeem was with me hanging out at the time. And he told me, he said, oh, this is so-and-so artist. And they call it house. They call it house music. Mm-hmm. So it just triggered that inside of me. And what I did, I went out, I looked for everything I could find on house music out at the time.
Right.
And I took it down the shore and I introduced it down to the Jersey Shore. They never heard house music there before that. So I was able to bring that down and introduce them to house music down there at the Jersey Shore.
It's pretty interesting. Even today, there's a lot of people have not heard house music. I'm going to say at least the style most of us listen to on the soulful, Afro, gospel house. And their concept of house, there's nothing wrong with it, is maybe EDM, it's trance, Well, you know.
Yeah, I know exactly what it's like. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well, I was
now,
just thinking about that. Yeah. And one thing I do realize that we've done, and I don't know if it's just the way we handle it or we're just not handling the right way. But I was thinking about the Grammys for dance. More pop artists have won best dance than our actual house musicians and house artists.
right,
Which to
right.
me is incredible that we have these great artists, because the house artists, a lot of them are great artists. They can sing, they got it all.
Yeah.
But for some reason, you know, the pop artists get that title. You know what I mean? I find that amazing. You know what I mean? That we can go down and these people that are in this industry that are supposed to know what they're talking about, because obviously it's club, you know, in music, any kind of music, you would think these people are the most educated, know the best, and realize, okay, this is a style of music different than what, you know, so-and-so is singing that's a pop artist. So maybe we should give them credit for what it is they're doing.
Right.
You know? But it doesn't happen as much. And unfortunately to me, it's the same way that happened with house when it started. When it started, you know, it was an underground thing. We had the producers, we had the artists, very hungry, very raw, very, you know, original. And then when the record labels realize, oh, there's money to be made in this. This is thing that's happening. You know, they go and okay, let's go hit all the house remixers and producers and have them do remixes for our pop artists.
Right, right.
So what happens? It kills our audience for our artists, because now you've got all these pop artists doing house music, getting house mixes done. So we have a tendency to step on our own toes when trying to move forward in this position, unfortunately.
Right. Well, you know what's interesting, Hippie, is that all the music that goes mainstream starts underground. Whether you're talking about R&B, rock and roll, soul. I mean, they start
jazz,
underground in the clubs.
Exactly.
And and you're right. Hey, listen, you know, I'm waiting for a Frank Sinatra house track. But anyway, but we come up again, and you're gonna see. Wait a minute, hold it, because I know, for example, Louis Vega made. I think it was Debbie or Tiffany, or one of them. He made a house track for them, and so you're gonna see it once it comes. Just like with disco, and I think you know, at one point, what was her name? Ethel Merman made a disco track, and it was like,
all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah. So, but now let me ask you this: what made like most people hear music, they like it, whatever, and they are listeners. Maybe they're even dancers. So what made you decide, hey, listen, I want to play this stuff. I want to DJ. I want to I want to do more than just listen and dance. What got you going?
Well, like I said, because I started with music, I appreciated music. And my roots, like I said, my dad at one point told us, you know, when we were young, he said, okay, I'm going to allow you each to buy a record, your first record. So, so my younger sister bought Sugar, the Archies, which were big at that time. My other sister got a song called Dizzy, My Head is Spinning. She got that song. And then me, I went straight for what was in my roots. Somehow I felt it in my roots was Marvin Gaye, Heard It Through the Grapevine. So that's where my roots started. And then what happened was, at our school, our grammar school, we called it basically. So when I was in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, I was in charge of the whole auditorium in the school. So I ran the record player, we ran the projector, we ran the stage, the lighting, everything. So you know, technically on that side, I guess it was preparing me to want to get into sort of like this field. You know what I mean? Because I was still young, you know, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. But I'm doing all this, you know what I mean? You're in charge of this, you're in charge of that, you're running this, you're running that. So I guess, you know, it sort of set me up and it sparked my interest towards the technical side as well as the music.
Okay, now you said record player.
Right.
Now, what I want to do, that's like payphone. What I want to do is I want to hold on to that. I want to bring it back. I'm going to put that to the side. I'm going to bring it back because I want to. So, now what about this? Hey, listen, you've been in this from the door even before they called it house music.
Right.
Where is this thing headed? What's your perception of where it's headed?
I actually think we have not only better producers and better artists.
Mm-hmm.
We have a sophistication to house. The house music that's being produced is, you've got very jazz oriented chord, well produced songs. You know what I mean? The artists are top notch on the singing end. So it's moving in a direction. It's almost like jazz. It's elevating it to another level.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether or not the public is going down that trail with us, we do know that it's happening to the music. Now, you know, you have the record label. Unfortunately, record labels, what they do is they want to make money off of it. So, so when jazz started, and you know, they started all the different styles, after a while they were like, no, we're calling everything jazz because it was easier for the public.
Right.
You know what I mean? The same thing happened with, you know, with salsa. At first it was mambo, it was rumba, it was, you know, boogaloo. It was all these different styles. And then Fania, who had most of those artists, said, you know, we're going to make it easy to sell it to the rest of the world. So we're calling everything salsa. So anything that falls in that category, we're calling it salsa. Same thing happened with disco. There was all different styles, but they were like, nope, you know what? We got to call it disco so we can sell it to the public. Same thing happened to house. They were like, you know, nope, we got to call it EDM so that we'll make it easier to sell to the public. It's just the way the record companies are. They're looking for that angle where they can get to sell as much as they possibly can and make it easy for somebody to come into a store and say, do you have any EDM? And that EDM can contain everything. It's just a matter of what you want. But if they put it under that category, at least you feel like, oh, I'm listening to some EDM music. It's really, it could be soulful house. It could be Afro house. It could be anything. Techno. It could be, you know, it could be anything. But they're going to put it under that category to make it easy for you to want it. That's all. Right. So it is getting sophisticated, though. Believe me, the music right now is much more sophisticated than it was back, you know, back in when we first started. The producers, the artists, all of them have much better arrangement, you know, better vocals happening. All that stuff is so much better. You can hear it in the music right now.
Now, speaking of that, and you mentioned producers, you produce too, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So so what made you decide, okay, you're already DJing, and now you decide, hey, listen, I want to make the music. So what made you make the leap, or what caused you to make the leap?
Well, what happened was I used to shop at a store in Newark called Music Village.
Oh, okay.
And the owner was Joe Rodriguez.
Oh, okay.
So I used to go all the time and shop, and, you know, and he knew I was DJing for some time by that point. So he was like, you know what, you know, you do this, you know, and what happened also was Jelly Bean just started producing and, you know, growing up as an artist himself, you know what I mean, doing his own stuff. So I guess he thought he's like, well, you know, you DJ a long time, why don't you try to do something? So I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? Okay, I'll try my hand at anything. And I'm not afraid to try anything. So then what happened was I borrowed a keyboard and a drum machine from Nelson Buchinieves, which was my business partner at the time. He had this. So I borrowed it. I went home and I started working on this little drum pattern. And then I added a bass the same day. And then by the time I finished those two, I started writing the lyrics to You're Gonna Miss Me. And I wrote them in one night. I did everything in one night. And then I brought it to him and I said, listen, this is what I have. And he listened to it and he said, that works, that's fine. Let's take it to the studio. So then he paid for the studio. We went into the studio. I went and produced it. I laid down the tracks because I wanted someone else to sing the song. I just wanted them to know how it flowed and how to sing it. But when I brought it back to him, he was like, no, it sounds fine like that. Keep your vocals on it. So I ended up doing the song with my vocals and everything, and we put it out. And, you know, that's where it started. That's the very beginning of it, that point there.
Now, name some of the people that you've worked with over the years.
Well, I've remixed a bunch of people before that. You know, I have remixed, how do you call it? Jimmy Ross, the Clark sisters. Okay. People like that I had done before that. And then once I did that production and did that song, then I started remixing other artists like, you know, Lisa Stansfield. I did those when I hooked up with Mark Mendoza. So we became Mentor Productions. And we started doing Lisa Stanfield. I did Eric Benet. We did Eric Benet. We did the Lacey. We did you know, we did a bunch of groups. We worked with Evelyn King when she was Divas of Color. Who else? I did some mixes on my own for Roland Clark and Robin S. and things like that. So, you know, I got to do that at the same time as I was producing.
Now, do you have a preference for DJing or producing, or do you have a preference for one or the other, or both, or what?
I love playing more than I'd like produce. I produce, but I'm not the type of guy. I have to feel something and I do it. So
Okay.
I might not do, you know, like there's people that live off the production end, you know what I
Right.
mean? And then they'll do the, you know, the DJing, because, you know, it's sort of, they go together. But
Right.
I'm always a DJ first, always a
Okay.
DJ first.
All
You know
right.
what I mean? I was a DJ for years before I even produced anything. So
Mhm.
I don't mind producing, and when I feel something, or if something comes to me and I'm like, oh, I like this, I want to put this out, I'll do it. But I don't do something. I can do something in a year, you know, and not do nothing for another year or two, you know. It's sometimes like that. And other times I'll put things out together. I'll put like 3 or 4 songs out, you know what I mean, in a couple of months. It all depends how I feel. But I prefer DJing. I really do.
Isn't that interesting?
That's the performance side of it. That's the reason why I enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's an art form. I believe DJing is an art form, and
Well,
what makes a DJ to me is, I mean, I can have the same music as another DJ, okay, exactly the same music, but they're not going to program like I do, which is
right.
one of the major assets of DJing is the programming. You've got to know how to program it, and they're not going to work it the same way I do.
Right.
So they play a song, they play it a certain way, you know, whereas I come and play it, it's almost like saying, you know, you have a popular song, you know what I mean? Let's say something like the Carpenters did, you know,
Right.
Luther Vandross cover did on a version of
Yeah.
Superstar, you know what I mean?
Yes.
They did it first, and then Luther did his own version. That's the
Right.
way the DJ is the same thing. You know, we might have the same songs, but we interpret it differently as to how we work it when we're playing it. And that's what makes it distinct for others when they hear it. You know what I mean? When I used to play at Zanzibar, when I would play a record, I would work it a certain way, and it became a Zanzibar song, like, you know, Peter Gunn, you know, by the Blues Brothers. People knew it. You know what I mean? They knew exactly what it was when I used to work it, when I used to take the end of the record and just turn it off and on and off and on and off and on and off. And they got used to it, and they expected it. They wanted it. Yeah.
Listen, when you said Zanzibar, that's like, you remember that Three Stooges and Costello that they said, Niagara Falls, Niagara Falls, slowly I turn. Well, when I hear Zanzibar, I think of you. And you know I've told this story before, but I had to tell it again. So for those of you who don't know, I've been a Hippie Torrales fan for a long time. So one day I'm at Zanzibar, like I've been many times, and Hippie was playing. And what I didn't know is this whole concept of the Richard Long sound system with crossovers and all that kind of stuff like that. So I'm listening to and Hippie's getting it. And next thing I hear it go. And I'm like, oh, this is crazy. And then boom, with the bass. I said, oh, shucks. I said, you know what? See, here's what you should have done. You should have posted something up there saying, don't try this at home. So, of course, I went and tried it. So $250 later, because I borrowed my friend's speakers, and I was playing the Great Falls in Patterson. And I tried that. So $250 later to get his stuff fixed.
Right.
Anyway, thank you very much, Hippie Torrales. That was
yeah, it's like all professionals. Be careful what you're doing, okay? Make sure you have enough
yes.
training in it to know what to do with it.
Yeah, you should have had a sign up said, don't try this at home. Anyway. So, wow. Anyway, when you say Zanzibar, I was thinking you and that
situation. Exactly. Yeah.
Now, what about this? Let's talk about any artists that you've heard that you would like to work with, or any DJs. I know you DJed pretty much everywhere, anywhere anybody could think of. Is there anybody, put it this way, name some people and places that you've played, and is there anybody that you want to play with, and or any places you want to play?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to play the only DJ right now I really would like to play with is Danny Tenaglia.
With who?
Danny Tenaglia.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, Danny
Yes,
Tenaglia.
yes, yes. Yeah, okay, gotcha.
You know, he's an excellent DJ, and
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I think we can complement each other in a way because you know, what he does, I'm sort of I feel a lot of what he's doing. I can enjoy it. There's a lot of DJs I haven't DJ with I would like to, but I have DJ with a lot of them, and I've DJ with a lot of DJs, you know. I had when I played well, even when I did guest spots, you know, I mean, David Morales played before me. Another time Louis Vega played before me. Another time I played with Terry Hunter. I played with Todd Terry. I played with so many DJs, you know, over the time. So I mean, I've been very lucky. I've been very lucky in a long time in this, you know what I mean? So I've been very lucky to do this. But there's a lot of DJs that you know, like new people coming up that I would like to play with, you know what I mean? That I haven't. So there's definitely more than enough, you know. If I try to name them, forget about it. I run out of space and stuff.
Okay.
You know, there's even places I haven't played that I want to play with. I want to play in Africa. I want to play in Australia. These are places that I haven't played at. You know what I mean? I would love to do stuff like South America. I haven't done. Those are all places I haven't played at. The rest of the world, a lot of other places I have played. Yeah.
Okay. Now, speaking of things you've done, you just recently did an interview at the university there. Talk to us about that, about the African diaspora. How did that come about, and what was the purpose and some of the highlights for you?
Yeah. Well, what happened was last year I did 2 different interviews from university professors that were looking into the club scene in Jersey and the nightlife and what was happening, and you know, the time period I was playing in and what was happening in the city of Newark and all that kind of stuff. So one of them, John Johnson, which was the host to the one I just did in Jersey City, he did an interview with me last year talking about that. And you know, and then when I finished, he was like, man, you've got so much information, and you know a lot of this stuff. We should maybe continue this. So what happened was, at his school, they were looking for someone to bring in for the diaspora on African influence. So he said, well, I got a guy for you. And he mentioned my name. And then they contacted me and said, you know, we would like to for you to do a talk on the club scene in Jersey and the music and all that kind of stuff. That's how that happened. Yeah.
Okay. And like, what were some of the highlights for you personally, and or that maybe the audience said, hey, listen, oh, I didn't know that, because I was doing that. I was saying, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. What were some of the revelations as far as you were concerned?
Yeah, I think a lot of people did not, like you mentioned earlier, a lot of people didn't know that Mancuso started the first record pool.
Right.
And a lot of them didn't even know that Eddie Rivera and Judy were both in that pool. You know, like I believe Judy was the secretary and Eddie was a member. And then they went out and started their own record pool. Judy started For the Record, you know what I mean? Eddie started IDRC. And also that Alex Rosner was one of the guys that first did all the sounds in New York. And he did, you know, Starship Discovery. He did all these nice clubs before Richard Long wasn't even around. And Richard Long used to work for Alex Rosner.
Okay.
So that chain goes like that. Just like Nicky Siano had the gallery. You know what I mean? It used to be like the premier club in New York. And who used to work there for him? Frankie Knuckles and Larry Levan. And they weren't DJs. You know, they just used to work there doing other things. Lights, you know what I mean? Cleaning up, whatever it was, they did it. You know what I mean? So there's always a chain, and you realize when you look at it that they came from somewhere where somebody talented was connected to them. You know what I mean? And I realized that, you know what I mean? You as you go down these chains and you look at these things, you're like, wait a minute. Well, this person was around this person, they influenced them, and they started their own thing. It's just the way, you know, that's why I always believe in having good teachers. Yes. And being around people that are very talented, because you will learn from them, even if you're not being taught by them. Just being around them, you will learn. Right. Yeah.
So let me share something with you. Okay. So I knew Judy Wine For the Record. Also I knew about Eddie and IRC. Then later also I remember Garden State.
Right.
And then I was in Ricket Records, so I know you know Billy
Right.
Ricket. I was
Yeah,
there.
Ricket came from Garden State.
Yes, yes,
See how
yes.
the chains are? You see how
Yes,
the chains?
yes, yes,
They always
yes.
come from somewhere else. Yeah.
And then I was in Shore Record Pool with Bobby Davis.
Right.
So how did I catch it? But let me go back to Nicky Siano. So I've seen interviews with him, and I know he brought about, it was because of him that Larry Levan and Frankie Knuckles came to the forefront. But watch this. So my direct mentor coming up was DJ Craig Oliver. I don't know if you know Craig or not, but Craig Oliver. But Craig Oliver was a mentee. I don't know directly but they knew each other, but he was a mentee of Nicky Siano. So I'm kind of like a second, third generation of that style of music. So it's, to your point, if you look, like everybody started somewhere.
That's right.
and
it's connected to somebody before that.
Yeah.
That was doing something. You know what I mean? To me, my connection is, Naeem Johnson and Camacho. They were my biggest. They used to tell everybody, you know what I mean? And they in turn inspired a whole bunch of other jocks. You know what I mean? So that chain continues that way too. It's just the way it is. You know what I mean? You've got to come from somewhere where you're learning from somebody, listening to somebody, and then you move on from there and do your own thing. It's just the way it is. Yeah.
Right. Funny. Now I've heard of Camacho, never met him, but Naeem Johnson I've interviewed, and I've talked to a great guy, always willing to share.
Mm-hmm.
He really could say, "Don't you know who I am?" But he doesn't. So a nice guy. So wow, I didn't know you had a connection like that. It's just amazing. It's amazing. Now let me ask you this. Is there anybody that you want to collaborate with in terms of either DJs, producers, or anything like that?
It's just like I said, there are so many, you know what I mean? Unfortunately, like I said, I have to, if I were to write, let's put it this way, if I were to get inspired to write a song, and then I'm like, okay, I like this, I'm looking for, I'm gonna want to collaborate with somebody that in the song I can feel them making a great production of it. You know what I mean? Like, in other words, if I start writing a song and I'm like, oh, this is perfect for so and so, you know what I mean, to be involved with, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. I mean, there's a lot of artists like that, you know what I mean? Just way too many for me. I don't want to say one name and forget another. And then
okay. I've done that. Hey, you know what else I wanted to ask you about? What popped into my head? That Latin influence.
Yeah.
Because I mean, a lot of people may or may not recognize it, but that Afro-Latino thing is very, very related.
Well, there's a story there that I discovered when I was doing the research for this one. And the thing was, I went back to listening to the early stuff, the jazz, you know what I mean? Before time, it was ragtime. These were all the style of music that the Africans had influences on. But what I noticed was that the American stuff coming out, you know what I mean, coming out of the States, was very influenced by the European 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of thing. You know what I mean? If you listen to early jazz or any kind of stuff, it's pretty straightforward. You know what I mean? Bop, 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 you know, that kind of thing. Now, the reason for that I discovered was that in the States, the British, the slave owners did not allow the Americans, well, they were obviously at that time, but they didn't allow them to practice their practices from back home. Like in the islands of Puerto Rico, Cuba, Santo Domingo, all of that. They would allow them on the weekends to surround themselves with their congas and percussion and all that, play their music, do their dances, and continue their traditions that they brought from Africa.
They
didn't do that in the States because the British knew the influence of the drum, and they knew how strong it was and how much it brought joy to them. So they didn't allow it. But that made a difference because when you listen to the American stuff, you hear it. It's very straight. Like it had that European straightness. All the music from Cuba, Puerto Rico, all those things have the clave. The clave is different than 1, 2, 3. The clave is blah, 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 blah. That's clave. If you
Okay.
listen to any salsa or any kind of mambo, any kind of that, it all has that. And that influenced that. And that's what brought, I believe that brought more of the flavor that was more true to the African diaspora. I believe that was more true because of the fact that they were allowed to still practice it.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
And if you go back, the first person who wanted to do something with transition, the Latin and the jazz was Dizzy Gillespie. And what happened was he got in touch and he got a guy named Puzzo, which was a Cuban conguero. So they did a song called Manteca.
Okay.
Manteca. There was another one, I forget the artist's name, I gotta find it, but the other song was called Tanga. They were both done at the same time. They both wanted to do jazz and Latin influences. Now you go back and you listen to Manteca by Dizzy Gillespie, and you hear the conga, but it's still pretty straight, the pattern. Gotcha. You go back and listen to Tanga, the other song from the other artist, and you hear that clave, you hear that, like you hear real, like Latin and African influences in there. And that makes a difference. That makes all the difference in the world. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So let's put that into house music now. Do we create a new sound? Right. Where do we hear it? Talk to us.
Yeah. Well, now you see there's a big thing going on, not only with the African influence, because in Africa, Afro house is huge. Right.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But then you have also another flow coming from Mijangos and all these guys who are from South America. Well, you hear a lot of Latin influences in the house grooves at the same time also. So it's getting very sophisticated, the percussion and all that. And you got, a lot of people doing that kind of thing. You know what I mean? That they're adding a lot of percussion that's rather than you hear the straight beat, you know what I mean?
Yes.
No, you're hearing a lot of percussion, a lot of movement, a lot of polyrhythms that they call it, a lot of polyrhythms. Yep. Well, and it's just making it richer. It just makes it richer, honestly. Especially on a dance floor. When you're on a dance floor, you know what I mean? You got polyrhythms playing, your body moves in whole different ways than if it's something straight, a whole different way.
Yeah. Well, again, what's exciting about it is when you bring those different influences together, it's like, wow, what just happened?
Yeah.
Wow. Now you're in South Carolina now. Okay. Well, first, and Columbia too, right?
Columbia, exactly.
Okay. So my family, most of my family is in Columbia. As a matter of fact, the next time I come to Columbia, I'm going to look you up.
Yeah, definitely.
And my family grew up around Arthurtown. You heard of Arthurtown? Okay, so you know Bluff Road Road up that way, Bluff Road right there, down not too far from the university. That's where most of my family is from, right around there. So wow, what a small world. So what made you say?
That's the connection. That's the connection.
Yeah,
like I tell you, that connection. Everything's connected somewhere. Somebody or it's connected to somebody like that. That's what it is.
Yeah. So what made you decide to leave? Say this area, the north, go down to the south, Columbia, and what's the scene like there compared to the scene here? What's your take on that?
Originally, I moved to Orlando, Florida, with my ex-wife at the time. We were moving because she was in New York when 9/11 happened, and she was in New York when they had the blackout. And when the blackout happened, it took her 12 hours to get home. So she was just afraid, and she was like, you know what? We're not going to wait for the next thing to happen. We don't know what's going to happen. So we used to go to Florida every year for vacation because I used to love Disney. So we our annual Disney, I would get my annual Disney fix every year. Then once our son was born, we went down, and then she just so happened to apply for, just to see what would happen. She applied for a job in Orlando, and they called her and they told her, yeah, you can do it. And then they paid for the whole moving and everything, all the cost. And we just moved down. So we moved there, we lived there. And then once I got divorced, I was coming back up north. I was going to go back to Newark. But my brother and sister were living in South Carolina, in Columbia. Like, why don't you come, visit us for a while, stay a couple of months, see what you like. So I ended up going to them and visiting them, and I ended up staying. So that's where I've been now. And I'm getting used to the weather and everything. You know what I mean? So it's kind of, I don't miss the cold from the north. So I've got both. I go up all the time as much as I can to Jersey, do events, do all that kind of stuff, and then I've got nice, better weather down here. Basically, that's all it is.
Okay.
Now, as far as the scene,
Yeah.
when I came here, it was just there used to be at one time a scene in Charleston, but then for some reason it disappeared. But then Kelly Kell, who lives here in Columbia along with me, she started building it up again. So she's beginning to build up the scene, and we're beginning to get people, from the area, from Atlanta, from North Carolina, from everywhere coming into her events. So slowly but surely, the scene is building here, and it's sort of like they appreciate it. They really appreciate it because the fact that there isn't much house in this area, they're beginning to appreciate the fact that she's bringing all these different DJs and artists and stuff like that and doing this stuff. So it's building. It is building.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know another person that is out of the Columbia area that's also doing big things. I don't know if you know Tony Gray and those guys from House Therapy.
Yeah. First time I played down here was with him. I did a gig at Wet Willie's with him.
Okay, yeah. He did mention Wet Willie's. Okay, interesting. Yeah, because I can tell you my family, like I said, is from Columbia, and they heard of R&B, they heard of hip hop and all that, but house is a little bit foreign to them.
Right.
But like my sister is kind of, I mean, it's not like she's gotta have house.
Right.
But because of my love for it, she is like learning it. So I just wondering.
But they probably know more than they realize, because what happens is once something becomes pop, it's no longer considered house to most people that don't know house.
Right.
When you had Show Me Love and you had Finally and all that, those were all house records.
Right.
You know what I mean? But to people that don't know, it was a pop hit. That's basically what it was. That's it.
Along those lines, why did Finally, why did Follow Me, why did Show Me Love, and some of these songs, in your estimation, why did these things go like so huge? What's your take on that?
I think one thing companies realize, and I think most producers realize, is that you can't tell what the public's gonna like.
True.
You really can't, unfortunately.
Right.
And it's just something the public finds and they like attach to it and they like it. And usually it's more I don't know if I wouldn't say simplistic, because house is a little more complicated than regular simplistic music, but the melody has to be simple enough, like all stuff that works, for them to be able to sing to it. So anyone can sing "Follow Me."
Yeah.
Or you've got to show me love. These are all simple things. It's not having to hit a high note that whatever her name is, I forgot, Mariah Carey. It's nothing like that. It's a simple melody line, so it connects. That's why it's called pop music, because everyone can sing to it. That's what happens. Now what happens is you never know which one of those are gonna hit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Superman did the same thing. You know what I mean? Superman with by Black Coffee did the same thing. It was a huge pop record.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you never know. And the other thing I will say is that it's territorial. What might become a pop record here may not become a pop record in other parts of the world. Whereas something that becomes a pop record in other parts of the world may not become a pop record here. When I first went to England and all that, they were playing opera music as pop music, and some of the artists were huge pop artists.
Right.
Radio here will not play any opera as a pop record.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it's territorial. It's different places are open to different things. It's the reason why jazz took off really well in France. It took off really well before even here in the States. Okay, the same thing with house. It took off really well in England before it was even played here anywhere in the States. It was pop music in England.
Yeah. Let's switch subjects for a minute. Okay, let's go back. You go back to, I'm going to say Foreign's turntables. You go back to BSR, Gerard's, and all that kind of stuff. The Technics 1200s, to CDs, to laptops, to flash drives, and now they're streaming. And folks, I'm highly recommending that you go watch that video on YouTube. Just like Hippie Torrales and put African Diaspora, it'll come up.
Right.
You've seen the technology grow. And then I'm going to say two dirty words to you. For as large controller and sync button. Oh, I'm sorry. What's a 4-letter word that starts with S? Sync. So,
Yeah.
so
Well, like I said, yeah.
let's talk about the evolution of that technology.
Mhm.
If you take it for a few minutes, and then, you know, for many people, there's a resistance to it. And I say to them, now, to be fair, I was a little slow adapting because I kind of didn't want to let the records go. Then I didn't want to let the CDs go. And now I'm struggling letting the laptop go. But more and more, I got to play with flash drives. You know, you're not going to a festival typically. I'm talking about or a really big club and say, oh yeah, let me cook up my laptop. It's not going down. So So anyway, so talk about that evolution. There's resistance to it. And sometimes I say, well, listen, how far you want to go back? You want to go to payphone and make your phone calls? You want to use a rotary dial? Hey, you want to, forget about air conditioning. You want to take a horse instead of drive your car? I mean, you want to go to the library or you want to get on your phone and find out, So what's your, talk us through that evolution. What's your thoughts on it? And what do you see?
Well, to me, I always, when I look at the advances and stuff like that, I always think of it, I try to think of it from an artistic point of view. So if I'm a producer, let's say if I was a producer when music first started, like in the 1890s. They started and they had the wax cylinders and all this kind of thing. So you listen to the music and it sounded very, a lot of static and not a scratch surface and all this thing. If those artists were able to hear the music the way it's produced now clean, they would probably want it back then. What they had. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because they only had that available at that time. Just like us, when we first started, we only had vinyl available.
Right.
You know what I mean? But once the CD came out and we realized, wow, this sounds so much cleaner. You know what I mean? Some people resist it, but the reality is that it does sound better from an artistic point of view.
Right.
Artistically, you're getting your point across exactly what you wanted. You wanted to hear a certain way, nice and clean, crisp, whatever you want there is there. So I don't have any problem with technology. I think the problem is more people tend to hold on to things longer. You know what I mean? They don't want changes. Changes is a hard thing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's really hard. But I always tell them, you got to understand the technology is going to happen regardless of whether you want to or not.
Right.
The reality is, if you don't adapt to it and learn how to use it to your advantage, you'll be left behind.
Right.
So don't get me wrong. There's people that still right now want to DJ with vinyl. That's fine.
Right.
But it's a novelty, not the standard.
Right.
You know what I mean? In other words, at this point, you DJ with vinyl, that's a novelty.
Yeah.
That's a reality. Okay.
Yeah.
But like you say, when you go to all these clubs or you go to these events, you better have your USB stick and ready to go.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. It's just that simple. So I always say, be ready for the technology. Try to adopt early so you can take advantage of it. The earlier you adapt to something, the better you will be than the next guy that comes a year later trying to learn what you already know. You already have advantage over him. You know how to use it. You know how to use it well. You know how to use tricks on it that he does have no conception yet of what's going to happen. So just adopt early and experiment with it, and you'll get better at it. That's what I think.
Well, I got to tell you something. I don't need to carry any more records and crates. I don't need to be limited to what I can bring because I can only carry X amount of crates.
Right.
I don't need to have in the music.
That's right.
I don't need people jumping up and having a good time. And now to say, you got to say, people, don't.
You make the needles jump. You got to make the needles jump.
At the jump. Yeah. I don't need to put a boulder on the needle to keep it from. I don't need to do any of that anymore.
Nope, not at all.
I could take a little thing like that and have thousands of songs on there. I could play any job. I could go crazy. And then too, like there's things that you can do with the new stuff that you can't do
exactly
with the stuff from back in the day. Now look, listen, if you want to have a nostalgia night, you want to go back, you want to play records, and have fun, and, you know, okay, that's one thing. But let me tell you something. If I can find it, that stuff's going right back where it came from. But I'm saying me. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
So yeah.
And
So I mean, I believe in the technology. Yeah.
exactly. And the thing about it is, people don't realize that a lot of them. I mean, AI is beginning to take off. So
Yeah.
get ready for it. AI is going to be no joke. You know what I
Right.
mean? AI cannot replace us as far as having the expressive. Let's put it that the
Right.
expressive way of playing a song.
Mm-hmm.
AI, you know, they can be taught to do things, and they can probably mix perfectly. They can do all of that without a problem. But it's almost the same as saying, you know, a jock that has all the latest songs, but is a horrible programmer.
Yes.
Regardless of what
That's
songs you have, you're a horrible programmer. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's
that's the same thing with AI. It's going to be able to do all of that, but it's not going to be able to do the same thing you as with a live audience. You have a live audience. You can at any point decide, okay, I'm gonna drop the music, or I want to drop the bass, I want to drop the highs, whatever you want to do. AI is not going to be able to do that. You know what I mean? They really can't see it. They don't know. They don't, that, you know, until they get to the point that AI can recognize emotions, and they may get at that point, but they're not there yet. You know what I'm saying? They're not there yet. So learn to use the technology to your advantage. That's all it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I agree, you know, now, especially if you're playing for a non-club audience,
right?
Like they wouldn't know a mix if they just listen, play the song. Wait a minute, but you know, like a club DJ was like, yeah, but you know, those beats don't match, it's not the right key. And it's like, look, play the song. I don't care if it's 99, you're gonna go from 120 BPM to 125 BPM down to 95. Look, just play the song. So, I mean, certainly your ability to mix is extremely important, but certainly, like you said, programming is the last word, your ability, and that's where we beat AI every time on that one. Yeah.
And not only that, like I said, the way you work a song.
Yeah.
You can personalize a song in your own way. You know what I mean? Two DJs can play the very same song, but the way they work the song, it's what's going to personalize it for them. That's basically, you know, your interpretation. If you were a singer, your interpretation of a song. That's what the personalization is of a song. When you work the crossover, work the song, do everything you do with it, extend it if you want to, whatever you want to do. That's your presentation, your personalization of what the song is.
Hey, look at the way Marilyn Monroe sang "Happy Birthday" compared. Well, you understand.
Yeah, exactly.
That's you know, the same words, but yeah. So we're getting right down to the wire here. We want to try to come in for a soft landing. Just tell us, you know, what can we look forward from you, or anything that you have coming up that you can share at this point?
Well, we're working on this year makes 50 years, so we're trying to work on an anniversary thing in Newark sometime, hopefully in September, somewhere around there. Doing something. Yeah, nice event.
Oh, fantastic.
And I still DJ, so, and when I DJ, I put it up on my, you know, on my Facebook page. I still do my show. I do a show every Tuesday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on cyberjams.com. So basically, you can go there, and if you want to see me do my show, 2 hours on every Tuesday, you're good to go.
What time is that on?
10 a.m. till 12 p.m. 10 in the morning till 12 o'clock.
Now, how do you get to Cyber Jams?
Well, you can go to the Twitch account. So it's twitch.tv /cyberjams_radio.
Okay.
Radio.
And jams is spelled with a Z at the end.
Z at the end, yeah. Cyber Jams. Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Any final thoughts?
Like I said, I think we're really getting really good at producing really well-made songs by, you know, the producers that are out, and the artists are excellent. I just hope that we can support them more, and I hope that at some point the music industry will start recognizing them as a true house artist rather than giving it to pop artists. You know what I mean? Which makes no sense to me, you know?
Right.
It makes no sense for an artist that's a pop artist. I mean, I've got nothing against Beyonce, but for her to win pop artist over some house artist that actually has been doing it 10, 20, 30 years,
right.
You know what I mean? I find it amazing that we as an industry don't fight for that more. That's all.
Real quick, you brought up Beyonce. You know, there was a furor There was some noise with Drake, but sort of the furor behind Beyonce making the house track. Terry Hunter did the remix, and then others did the remix. Gorgeous, Mary J. Blige didn't get as much recognition. What's your assessment of a Beyonce or big pop artist making a house track? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, like I said, they're just trying to cash in on a style that's been happening for a long time. You know, I mean, you know, all artists, believe it or not, that's the reason why Ethel Merman did a disco record in the disco era, because you know it was making money. So if it's making money, everybody's gonna want to put a song in. You know, babe, I want to do something. I got to make money at this point, so let me do a disco song. Same thing with house. House is one of EDM, even though it considers all house. You know what I mean? It's still making money now. You know, EDM is making a lot of money for the label. So you know, it was like, okay, so let's do something in house, you know what I mean, and throw it out there and see what we can do with it. That's basically what it is. You know, pop artists are always looking for that way to be able to get into the market and what's happening at the moment. Okay, but you know, it is what it is. You know, you can't really do much about it. I just say we fight more for our own artists.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, Hippie. If people want to contact you, follow you, support you, how do they do it?
They can go to Facebook, deejayed.com, hit my like button to, you know, and whatever I post, I'll put it up there. You know, they'll know where I'm going to be at. My thoughts, anything I have will be up there.
All right, then. Hey, listen, thank you so much. Thank you so much. By the way, just so you know, folks, when I was first starting to do this thing called SOULFUL Nation with the interviews, and everybody had a bad case of Dan who? Hippie Torrales gave me an interview. You talking about going back to the beginning. So thank you so much, Hippie. All right.
Thank you.
And again, I'm still trying to collect that 200. Anyway.
All right.
That's right. Hey, listen, thank you so much. Hey, God bless. All right.
You're welcome. Thank you. And Lily says hello.
Okay. Hey, Lily. Hi. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Take care. All right. Then. All right. Bye-bye.
Zanzibar, right?